The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio. Want the real story behind the sound bites and headlines? Let's find the facts. Remember, it's not a conspiracy theory if it's the truth. You are not paranoid or confused. You just need to know.
Welcome in, everybody. It is time for everything you need to know. And I've got a good one for you today, talking about our usual subject matter, but maybe in a little bit more of a creative and illustrative way to do it. So we'll get to that in just a moment. Hope everybody has had a great week and weekend. A lot of excitement in my other world, the realm of college football. Topsy-turvy roller coaster ride every single week. Hope you're checking out all of our other programs on various media. Right here, of course, Tony Kurre and I team up every week for Kiefer and Kurre. That will be available a little bit later today as we record here on Monday morning. And, of course, Need to Know right here on TKR. And don't miss our television show if you're in the Birmingham market, or even if you're not. We have a YouTube channel that you can catch the show, and it's posted right here on TKR every week. It's the Starting Lineup, which is an all-star team of great commentators that focus predominantly on college football, but you never know what's going to happen, and you never know who's going to be in the starting lineup. And as I continue with the shameless plugs on local radio in Birmingham, Saturday morning, it's game time with Kip Kiefer, Terry Quillian, the First Lady of SEC football, and the legend from the Paul Feinbaum Show. We have been having a great time every Saturday getting you ready for a big day of college football. Then the starting lineup, of course, comes on ABC television at 10:30, just as the starting lineup, as I should say, game time wraps up. And then our Staples show on Sunday mornings on JOX 94.5, streaming everywhere, coast to coast and around the world, is the Morning After. And man, did we have a great show on Sunday. Caller lines jammed. Everybody wants to get in and talk about college football. Have just a whole list of luminary Hall of Fame callers, and it's just a great show. So shameless promotion over. Let's shift gears and tell you what, and of course you needed to know all of that, but let's tell you what you need to know on this Monday morning. Yesterday, nobody paid attention. Nobody cared. It didn't even make very much news. But yesterday, we had in cities around the country, predominantly in Washington, D.C., we had the ridiculous, unbelievably stupid, completely pointless No Kings rally. No Kings. That was the name of this big deal. In Washington and New York, the sponsors of the No Kings rally was the American Communist Party. Yes, the American Communist Party, the Democrat Socialists Association, and the Young Socialists of America were the three predominant underwriting sponsors. Now, anybody inclined to be the American Communist Party, where do you suppose their funding comes from? The whole premise of communism is this: everybody's tied for first place. Everybody works collectively for the state. There's no ego. There's no individuality. We're all just, in futuristic programs. And we're going to talk about how art imitates life, and life definitely imitates art. All the programs you see in the future, male, female, fat, skinny, rich, poor, everybody wears the same clothes because we're all in this grand scheme of things on this leftist perspective of life. We're all equal and all the same, and we don't have any individuality. We don't stress our individual talents. We don't accentuate our skills and strengths. We're all just the same. And if you believe that's the kind of world we should live in, well, you shouldn't have been watching football yesterday or going to church and praying to God above or spending time with your family at a Sunday dinner table, all of the things that all of this movement, this leftist movement that are sponsoring No Kings rallies, the American Communist Party, they don't believe in any of those things. Charlie Kirk was recently assassinated because he was spewing hate speech for supporting the just appalling trio of values that this country is founded on, which are country, God, and family. And by him being a proponent of God, country, and family, he was spewing hate speech to this all-star team of miscreants and misfits and malcontents. That's three good M words right there in a row that are the people gathering in Washington yesterday. And really, the only theme of this gathering is that Donald Trump is the Antichrist. Donald Trump is the guy who's ending it all for America. Donald Trump is the king of America right now, who is using his power and deploying military assets to leftist blue cities where the crime rate is so severe that walking down the street or going out to dinner on a Saturday night is taking your life into your hands. And by the deployment of troops, that's the ultimate evidence for these people that. And these are people that are in National Guard. They're on duty. They're being paid by you and me, the taxpayers. And usually it's to go and, quote, train on weekends at facilities around the country. But these guys being trained, being paid, being compensated, their deployment to big cities to improve and completely eradicate this wave of crime created by these same people that are in the streets saying all of these terrible things about the president of the United States, that he is taking over, he's a dictator. The country as we know it is coming to an end. The one Fitzker, whatever his name is, the governor of Illinois, who's rich as hell. He's the heir to the Hyatt Hotels family fortune. This guy is standing up and saying that Donald Trump is taking us to hell on a bobsled and ending our country by becoming an absolute ruler, autocratic ruler, all powerful, all in charge. This is the end of democracy as we know it. Okay, JD, let's talk about democracy. On November 5th last year, 2024, the American people went to the polls. That's democracy. That's representative republic. That's America. That's our government. And they overwhelmingly selected Donald J. Trump over Kamala Harris. You're standing for democracy. Kamala Harris did not receive one vote to become the Democrat nominee. She was drafted by the powers that be in the party once Joe Biden was revealed to be completely, cognizantly absent. The debate against Donald Trump was a national embarrassment for all of these people, and they all knew it. And look at all the tell-all books that are out right now talking about all of the people who recognized early on that Joe Biden was in no condition to be president of the United States. The only decision Joe Biden was capable of making while he was awake, the 3 or 4 hours a day that he was actually had his eyes open, was which kind of ice cream he wanted, usually mint chocolate chip. Uh, Other than that, Joe Biden was not in charge, and pardon my language here, but it's the only way to say it. Joe Biden was president of the United States, and he he was not in charge of jack shit. This guy made no decisions, was not capable of making decisions, did not have the attention span of a second grader. All he wanted to do was nap and sit on the beach and eat ice cream and think about the fantasy that he was actually in charge of something. It was a shadow government run by an absentee president. It was the third term of Barack Obama with all of his operatives in charge. It was the payoff to the 8 years of infrastructure that Obama and his contemporaries built to try and seize power in this country forevermore. Because when they're in charge and they have the majority in Congress, which they couldn't maintain over Obama because people saw what was happening there. That's why Trump beat his hand-chosen successor, Hillary Clinton, in 2016. The American people, through democracy, through representative republic government, selected Donald Trump twice to negate this movement. This group was going to try, because Joe Biden, even though he was completely not up to the task, he was the perfect guy to have in office because he was just a placeholder. He was a puppet. He was an actor in a play, playing the president of the United States, and his power-hungry wife, Dr. Jill Biden, whose degree was in being an educator. She was not a doctor, and the fact that she calls herself Dr. Jill Biden is comical, but that's another story. She was all in on the ruse of Scranton Joe, the moderate Democrat, 50-year representative in Washington and Congress. Everybody was on board, and they were going to run him again because it was the perfect world. He was a stooge. He was a placeholder. He was a marionette on strings. They could push him and pull him any way they wanted. They could let him go on vacation for 2 and 3 weeks at a time. They could let him be totally unaware that his major cabinet officials were hospitalized and not available. Lloyd Austin, the Department of Defense secretary, disappeared for a couple weeks. Joe Biden had no idea. Austin didn't even think it necessary to inform the quote commander-in-chief that he was going to be out getting treatment for prostate cancer. It was just an absolute joke. The entire administration was a joke. And the American people on November 5th just resoundingly sent the message as Donald Trump won 87% of the counties in the country. He won over 330 electoral votes, a landslide over Kamala Harris, who was going to be the next puppet stooge in the White House. She wouldn't have cared about policy. She knows nothing about policy. She actually had the audacity this past week of saying she's probably the most qualified person to ever run for president in the history of the United States. Anybody who side is not still hurting. I think we hurt oblique muscles around the country because the laughter was so profound at that statement that she actually is trying to present herself as qualified to be president of the United States. I'm not going. This is a family show. I'm not going to tell you how she got her first gig in California, but it involved a lot of time invested with the head of the legislature in California, Willie Brown. She was his protege, and let's leave it at that as what her actual duties were. But this is a person who never accomplished anything. She was elected to be attorney general in California a couple times with disastrous results. Look at that state, what a cesspool it is. And Kamala Harris was a big architect in this lawless, revolving door criminal justice system that became stylish in California and has now transcended itself to these other pockets of liberalism in the United States and extreme leftist policy. Chicago, New York, others, big cities, blue cities controlled by Democrat leftist administrations. Anyway, Kamala Harris completely clobbered by Donald Trump. 7 swing states that were considered to be the places where the election was going to be determined, and every single one of them won by Donald Trump, 7 for 7. Democracy spoke loud and clear, and now these miscreant, misfits, malcontents are so absolutely miserable because of their falling on their face and all of the time that they spent to build up what they thought was going to be a monopoly forever has blown up in their face, and they're so frustrated now and so out of control that they've got the government completely shut down now. You've got military people who have not been paid in a couple of weeks. This is the 20th day as we speak of the government shutdown. It is Democrats who do not have the majority, that do not have the White House, that do not have the a single thing to kind of hang their hat on. All of their policies, everything that they had built is gone. So they saw an opportunity here. After 13 times during the Biden administration in just 4 years of passing continuing resolutions, a CR, which is a simple move when Congress doesn't do their job, they vote to keep the government operating by appropriating the same amount of money that had been appropriated the year before, just until the new budget can be drafted. And that's usually an 11th hour deal where the Democrats were getting everything they wanted in terms of asinine spending that's put our country in a multi-trillion-dollar deficit and big hole because the Democrats, to hold that power and control, continue to pass these ridiculous spending bills, pass out money like it's just being printed up down the street, and it never stops. And it had to stop, and the American people told them it had to stop, and the election results of Congress in the House of Representatives and the Senate and the White House going to Republicans, it put the Democrats in this terrible position. So instead of going with the same idea that they've had for the last bunch of years, when there's disagreement and these resolutions are passed to keep the government operating, keep people being compensated, the Democrats saw this as their opportunity to get back into the game, as we can say, after they lost out in defeating the one big beautiful bill, which Trump got passed through Congress, that completely cut down, slowed down the spending, took away all of their pet projects, all of these things, all of these identity groups, these nefarious all-stars that are parading around marching in Washington. They've convinced them that it's the worst thing ever, that Donald Trump's in the White House. He's taking over. He's going to be a dictator. Democracy as we know it is over. Cats are going to be with dogs. It's going to be raining toxic chemicals on all of us. We're doomed. The world is over unless Democrats are in charge. They have held up the government now because the budget came and went, and you have to continue to officially draft monies to keep the government open. They have said, nope, we're not going to sign off on what our strategy has been the last 8 years, and I should say the last 12 of 16 years between the Obama administrations in all three times, including the one called the Biden administration, which didn't really exist. Nope, we're not gonna support a continuing resolution this year. You're gonna have to sit down and negotiate with us, even though we are the minority party and have no power whatsoever. We demand negotiation because we want our spending provisions put back into this government funding bill. It's 24 pages to continue what we were doing. Nope, we want to write about 1,000-page one that says we're going to spend $1.5 trillion to restore all the projects that the Trump administration in its first year has taken away. And that's, they thought, was a bargaining tool to get the Republicans to negotiate with them to keep the government operating. And the Republicans said, not just no, but hell no. We're the majority. You're the minority. We are not going to sit down and put all of your spending back in play, so you will be magnanimous enough to open up the government. And in the meantime, while the government was shut down, Donald Trump pulls off the most significant foreign policy achievement in the past 2 centuries. Donald Trump goes to Israel and makes a speech last week at the Knesset, the joint session of the legislature in Israel. He gets 14 standing ovations for bringing about the end of the Israeli-Hamas war, which is still lingering now because Hamas is a terrorist organization. They are going to have to be stomped out. They are not honorable enough to live up to the agreement that they were forced by their Arab neighbors to accept. Trump enlisted the insistence of almost the entire Middle Eastern group of countries to tell Hamas, enough of this BS. You are going to sign this agreement and you are going to stand down in Gaza. You are not going to be the government anymore. You're a terrorist organization. You're completely destroying this region of the world. The Arabs turned against these radical Muslim Islamic despots. And the result is Hamas, of course, is not cooperating, although they were forced to agree. They did release the hostages. Trump, in a speech in Egypt, surrounded by every major world leader who was wanting to get on his coattails and be part of this amazing achievement. While the government shut down, Trump's doing all of this. Trump is meeting with the Chinese officials to talk about trade agreements. He's brokering a peace plan for Ukraine and Russia. All of this is going on. And what these people want you to believe is that this guy is the worst thing ever. It's the end of our democracy as we know it. No, folks, democracy has never, ever worked better. I told you about life imitating art. It's supposed to be the other way around. Art is supposed to be a representation of life. But in this case, everything you see from these people, sponsored by the American Communist Party, by the Democrat Socialist Society, and the Young Socialists of America, everything you see is just dramatic theater. This is truly life imitating art, because all of these people, they have nothing. They have no vision. They have no policy. They have no power. They have no control. So all they can do is rally this nefarious group of losers and miscreants. I'm going with my M words again: misfits, miscreants, and malcontents, who all have their specific agenda. All of them are these victim organizations that want to be different, that don't want to accept living in a country that's based on country, God, and family. Those are the antithesis of what they want. They want to be in this fringe groups. They want to be victims. They want to be not only accepted but celebrated and made mainstream. And it's just not practical now. And again, I've been very clear, and I think I stand with almost every American listening to this that are for God and country and family. What you do with your lives, folks, if you want to be a trans person, if you want to identify as something else, if you want to be a radical teachers union member who were out there in force yesterday in Washington, because the Department of Indoctrination, it's not Department of Education, it's the Department of Indoctrination. These leftist people have taken over teachers unions, and they are so extreme. They don't want to educate your children anymore. They want to indoctrinate your children. They want to tell them what to think. They want to tell them how horrible their country is, how horrible their family is, how horrible and ridiculous that anybody believing in God is. This is the opposition right now. This is who was in the streets on a Sunday afternoon instead of watching football, or instead of being in church, or instead of having a family dinner with their loved ones. These are people who believe in aberrant behavior, not consistent with what this country is founded upon. And if that's their belief, more power to them. Do your thing. Believe whatever you want. Just get off my lawn. Get out of my face. Get out of my country if necessary, if it makes you so miserable. Democracy is not being threatened. You are the threats, because you are the malcontents who are out marching around and making a complete asses out of yourselves, because you are not the mainstream, and the frustration is so profound that it is never going to end. Anyway, that's pretty much the rundown here. And that's what we saw in Washington yesterday. I don't usually do this, but I didn't want to leave any of the all-stars out. So, it comes down to this political theater is all of these people parading around and trying to make their statement. And I mentioned the teachers union people, the radical teachers union, which is basically just a leftist organization to try and poison and brainwash your children. And if you allow that to happen, shame on you. The rally in Washington also included just the basic Trump haters, the Trump delusionists. Trump is the big evil guy. You don't consider any of the situations of the economic situation of the country, the fact that our borders are now completely secure. We're not just letting gang members and terrorists into the country and all these malcontents from all over the world to get a free lunch on your money. Look at your check sometime, your taxpayer money. The other thing that's at the center of this government shutdown is the entire idea that the Democrats are appalled that they can't hand out money to all these illegals now for free health care and free housing and free education, because they're trying to convert these people into their new constituents, because the Americans are fed up with them. They had to import new voters, and these people that they believed that they could use and be on the fast track, they're already issuing them, as I told you on the last show, Social Security numbers, which allow allows them to get driver's licenses and allows them to get on voter rolls. Well, that plan has been blown up because the American people know what they're up to and have stopped it. And of course, you've still got some of the all-stars around from the climate change agenda. Climate change is the biggest crock of you-know-what ever. It's absolute fraud. This planet's been here for 4 billion years. These wacko environmentalists, these climate change, cultists, all of these fringe people out marching around, raising hell. This is the end of America. No, this is America coming back. This is America being America, where you have a right to free speech, as these people do. Use your free speech, but it's not going to move the needle. And as much as the Democrats want to piss and moan, they are not going to get a seat at the table here to negotiate getting back on track with their ridiculous policies that were sending us circling the drain until, thank God, the American people woke up and put responsible people into office now that are making major strides, foreign and domestic, and doing the job that they were sent to do. And if that's the end of democracy, these people don't know what democracy is. Their definition is it's democracy as long as we're in power and control, because that equates to us having unlimited money to spend to stay in power and control. And that, folks, is what's going on. There were great indicators, and I keep teasing this, but I'm going to finish it off here as we wrap things up. There are 3 examples I'm going to give you. First of all, I've long been a huge fan of the James Bond film series. All of those years, and in all the remakes in recent years of Daniel Craig, the core bad group, the poor bad guys, were Spectre, S-P-E-C-T-R-E. Spectre stood for Special Executive for Counterintelligence, Terrorism, Revenge, Extortion. Life imitating art. Think about that. Spectre, Special Executive, Counterintelligence. That's all that this Obama movement has been. It's been counterintelligence. It's been intelligence against their own country. It's been the planting of false information. Counterintelligence, terrorism, revenge, and extortion. Revenge is what's going on in the streets right now. It's when you're just bent over angry, revenge is what you seek. And extortion is what they're trying to do now that they have been found out and kicked out of office, and the American people know exactly what they're up to. This is the modern day Spectre, because the extortion is now trying to sit down with this administration and say, okay, we'll allow you to run the government, but we want all of our spending back. We want our $1.5 million, $1 trillion back that we can spend on illegal aliens and get them health insurance and free stuff so they'll still keep trying to come into this country. We want that money to carry over Obamacare. They're using that excuse that people are going to lose their health care if Trump is allowed to continue. Trump has given no indication he's going to blow up Obamacare. They're looking for a better system, and it needs to be a better system because the cost is ridiculous, and the only reason that it's still in effect is because this Democrat-run government for years has been putting trillions of dollars into Obamacare to keep it afloat. There's hardly any choice there. It's a disaster. It was a terrible idea, and it's not working. And they're freaking out because this administration and this group of people that are currently in power in Washington are getting things done at a dizzying level that they can't keep up with and can't comprehend. So that's the resistance you're seeing in the street. It's Trump delusion. It's all these fringe groups that they have enlisted to do the dirty work. And it's all these elites. All these people have all these printed signs and T-shirts, and I mean, it's being funded clearly by the groups. Maybe it's not Spectre from James Bond, but it's the modern day equivalent of that, because these movements are not organic. These rabble rousers that show up in these cities are paid thugs. This is what their job is: to burn things down, to destroy property, to throw rocks at police, and some of them take it to another extreme and to actually open fire on law enforcement officers working for immigration enforcement. And the idea that the police officers, law enforcement officers, are targets now is so anti-American, it's just beyond all comprehension. So everything you see, take a step back, think about it all. A couple other quick examples from the yesteryear. Remember the show Get Smart? Get Smart was about Agent 86, played by Don Adams. The agent's name was Maxwell Smart. It was a spoof. It was a comedy. His partner was Barbara Feldon. The actress was Agent 99. Remember who the opposition was in Get Smart? Get Smart, they worked for a secret government agency called Control. And basically, it was kind of an early modern day CIA kind of a organization, secretive in their business. Remember how many doors Maxwell Smart had to go through just to get into Control headquarters? And of course, the last door slam and bust his nose. But as funny as all that was, the group that they battled in those days, how prophetic of the writers. That group's name, Chaos. It was always Control against Chaos. And Chaos is exactly who was marching in the streets yesterday, because Chaos is the only thing they have to hang their hat on. They have no vision, no policy, no control, and no power now in government anymore, because the American people, through democracy, through the republic, the American province of representative republic government, have rooted them out. And they are so desperate that chaos is what they've adopted. And if that's not enough, for my final example, remember Rocky the Flying Squirrel and Bullwinkle? Yes, indeed. They had evil villain enemies too in their heyday. It was Boris Badenov and Natasha Fatale, who were crafted after kind of Russian communist underground secret guys. Even the Nazis. Boris Badenov wore the big overcoat. It was kind of a Nazi communist spoof, and they made them kind of comical, hapless characters. Boris and Natasha, they worked for a secret organization, and the fearless leader was the unknown, anonymous string puller there. I think the fearless leader now is not anonymous. It is the George Soros organization and family. George Soros, probably like Joe Biden now, he's like 150 years old. I don't think he's pulling the strings anymore, but all of the infrastructure that the Soros people built, all of this unrest and different things in the country as far as riots and protests, all coming from there. But it's kind of this whole Euro trash thing too, because Chaos was all characters based on that. Spectre has always been Ernst Stavro Blofeld, who was a Euro trash kind of malcontent, was the original leader of Spectre. And Natasha and Boris in Rocky and Bullwinkle, it always is kind of this Euro trash. Soros was originally an Austrian who was basically kicked, or a Hungarian, kicked out of his country. He was from Hungary, actually. Kicked out of his country, banished from there, hated there. And all of these people, life is imitating art from some sources you never would have expected. But God bless James Bond and Get Smart and Rocky and Bullwinkle. God bless America. That's the premise. That's the story. And it's as ridiculous as it seems, life imitating art, because this is all these people have to fight back. And it's a fight that they can't win because the American people are smarter than they are. And the American people stepped up and said, no more. We've rode this train to the absolute edge of the cliff, and it's time to get off and get back to business of being America again. And America, once again, founded on three principles: God, country, family. Welcome back, America. Welcome back, everybody who made the right decision. And if you hear the voices, drown them out. The nefarious all-stars and their ridiculous no kings, democracy is doomed march are barking up the wrong tree, because it's completely an aberrant image of what's actually happening. And that's all they can do, is project their own misery on their enemy, which in this case is Donald J. Trump, whose administration in his first year, and it's not even to the first year, we're only in October. He took over, of course, at the end of January this year. The accomplishments of this administration in its first year are absolutely astounding. Whether you like Trump, whether you don't like him, that doesn't matter. He didn't run for Miss Congeniality. He's got a fantastic team in Washington. He's got both houses of Congress, and in 2026, I think you're going to see more of the same, because any American person with their eyes open and not in this same group of complete the three M's that we've been talking about, all of you are aware, and I appreciate you listening to the show today. Remember, Spectre, Chaos, and Boris and Natasha, that's who we have in the streets parading around making absolute fools of themselves. We'll be back next week with another edition of Need to Know. God bless you all. Love you for listening. Can't thank you all enough. And thank you to TKR for providing this platform. We'll be back next week with more Need to Know.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.